Hello and welcome to What's the Deal Tutorials. It's me, Diel, and we're here with Stellaris. Today's topic is fleets. You're going to learn about what fleets are, their capacities, and some special clarifications about what things do and do not count for those capacities. You're going to learn how to manage the fleets, understand the screens that come with the fleets, understand the values, and the fleet manager. Then we're going to learn about maintaining your fleets and even enhancing them so that they stay good for wars to come. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's talk about fleets. What is fleet size and what is naval capacity? A fleet is a collection of ships, and these ships' jobs is to provide mobile defense for your territories and to assault your enemies. Now, you can only have so many of these ships in one organized fleet. You can see here that we have 15 out of 50 being used for this fleet, and that is over here at the fleet size. Now, that is how much this particular fleet unit right here can hold. But across all of our empire, we are subject to naval capacity, which can be seen here. Naval capacity counts all fleets and adds them up. It just so happens that right now our fleet size and our naval capacity is the same. That means if I fill up this fleet, I will also fill up my naval capacity. Now, I cannot go above my fleet size, but I can go above my naval capacity. If I were to fill up this fleet here, and then create another fleet, I could do so with some extra costs to my empire. One thing I would like to point out is that certain special units, such as bubbles here, or the defense platforms that are around this station, do not count for your naval capacity, so feel free to build those and have them, so long as you can afford their upkeep. So now that we know the basics of fleets, let's talk about how to manage them. Making sure that these are in good running order and the strongest possible is going to be the difference between life and death out there in the stars. So where do we begin understanding fleets in depth? We start with the values given to us in the screen here. As you can see, we have 4 values of importance. The first of which is pirate suppression. Pirate suppression tells us how likely it is for this fleet to suppress pirates in the region and to stop them from spawning a fleet which will attack your territory. Next is the shields of the collective fleet. That means every single vessels is added up here to this 750. Once those are 0, every single ship in your fleet has no shields. Right after that is the armor. This again is a collective value for all ships within your fleet. And finally, we have the hull points. If this reaches 0, your vessel will die. But if the shields or armor reaches 0, it still has a chance to live. Another important value to understand is the military power. This looks at all of the components of your ships and gives you a rough value for how strong your vessel is. Do not put all of your faith in this number. It is good to be larger than the enemies, but depending on your loadout, your ships may be stronger or weaker than that number makes them appear. It's all about what the enemy has and what you have, and what's effective against what. If you're interested in looking at the individual values of every ship, you could always hover your mouse over the said ship and then look at the values here given to us in this menu, along with ship modifiers which tell us how our ship is being affected where it is. Let's go further and look at these buttons right here. The first of which is a manual button for attack. You can use this and then click the enemy, or you can just right-click the enemy directly with your fleet selected. The second of which is your bombardment policy. Here you can choose indiscriminate, selective, or Armageddon if your empire allows for that type of policy. These have an effect on how aliens view you, so it's not always the best idea to glass a planet. Determine that case by case. Last of which is the fleet stance. Will it remain passive when it's in the system? Will it aggressively seek out things to destroy? This is up to you. And if you have a civilian ship, there's a third option available, as we can see here, which is evasive. If any enemy enters that territory, that vessel will do everything it can to leave before it is destroyed. So there's a lot of buttons on this screen. Let's try to figure out what each one of them mean. The first button right here is the reinforced fleet, but you can see we're already at our full strength, because up here in parentheses you can see 15. And that means in the fleet manager, which we'll talk about soon, we've set the maximum fleet amount to 15. And so there is nothing to reinforce as far as it's concerned. The next button here is to split the fleets. This will take your one fleet and create 2 fleets. It splits them about as evenly as it can. You could select both fleets and utilize this next button right here, which is merge. That will go ahead and connect those two fleets back together. Let's see that now. And you can see they've gone ahead and reformed into one group. The next is a transfer of fleets. This way we can choose individual ships to transfer into a new fleet instead of letting it be done automatically. After that is upgrade ships. If we have upgrades available, like new technology has been researched, we can use this button to send it to a local shipyard and upgrade. After which we have repair fleet. This will send it back to the nearest shipyard or station in the area that can allow it to repair at a faster rate than just out in space. Up here we see take point. This is for when you have allies out in the stars, specifically AI allies. It will encourage them to follow this one fleet whenever you are in war together. The next is Fleet Manager. If we click this, we'll open up the Fleet Manager menu where we can change a lot of things about this fleet's composition and make our life a lot easier. We'll talk about that very soon. The next is Go To. No matter where you are, you can click this button and it will take you right to the fleet like we see now. And the last is Disband. If you disband a fleet, you will get rid of everything inside. So please make sure you're not disbanding unless it's filled with old ships that you do want to get rid of. There are better ways to get rid of old ships, such as retrofitting them, but there are some ship types, like the Specials, which cannot be upgraded, and eventually they may be too weak for you to keep around. We talked about Merge, but the next is Stop. This will just tell it to stop whatever it's doing. Then to Return, which will return to its home base, as we can see here, is the Sol Station. But we can go ahead and change that to any space station that we have within our empire. Then we have Move. This can be done directly through this button, or you can just right-click an area and tell it to move. Then we have Initiate Jump. When you have technology that is higher later on, you have the ability to do warp jumps and psionic jumps. That is how you do them. Otherwise, it will use hyperlanes as usual. And then the final is Patrol. Wherever its current location is, and wherever you click the final location, the fleet will patrol between those areas. This is a rather good thing to do if you have two points that you must keep defended, or if you have a large stretch of stars, which has a pirate problem, and you have corvettes or other highly suppressive vehicles. And the final button, seen here, is the Close and the Deselect. If you have multiple ships selected, then Deselect will only deselect that one ship. For example, let's go ahead and collect Bubbles as well, but then get rid of Bubbles from the collection. The button up here, Close, will close it no matter how many you have, like so. So now let's talk about the Fleet Manager. Here we can see the Fleet Manager, and we can see two fleets, Bubbles and First Fleet. From here, we can go ahead and make changes like the home base. We can increase or decrease the amount of ships that will be within that fleet. We can also add new ships to the fleet, such as this destroyer. Now you see, as we increase the amount of ships, our command limit goes up, and this is our fleet size. Let's go ahead and have a fleet that looks like this. Now, when we press the Reinforce Fleet button here, or do so via this menu here, we will get all of the ships that we made queued up when the resources are available. You won't have to worry about it. However, it won't do it all at once. If you do not have the sufficient resources to get everything put back, in this case it's 4,464, then it will just create what it can. As we can see here, it'll create 2 ships for 264 alloys. Now you can also give it repair orders, and you can tell it to upgrade, but an ability here that isn't seen on the previous menu is Retrofit. Here you can choose another design of a similar class to replace. So if you created a new destroyer and it wasn't auto best, as you can see here, then you could go ahead and say choose this destroyer for this fleet, and it would go ahead and change all of those ships over for you when you do upgrade. Now we can go ahead and create fleets, and we can delete fleets. But as you can see here from the warning, any ships still within the fleet will be destroyed. So make sure that you've removed all of your ships or moved them to other fleets where they should be before you go ahead and do this. Now, let's say that you are really intrepid and you would like to create your own ships. How would you go about doing this? You would go to the side menu here and you would click Ship Designer. Here you can see that we have auto best designs. But if we wanted to, we can go ahead and click New Design and design a new corvette. In this case, we only have one choice of section, and each section has different types of slots that can be filled. From here, you would click the individual slots, and on the side menu, you would get what you can fill it with. You drag and drop, and the same thing down here. You see that armor and shields are two separate things, so you can customize that how you want. Over here are necessary components, and you can choose what level they are, because as you go through the research trees, you will get more advanced components. It increases their capabilities, but also their cost. We won't talk about the ship designer in too much detail. There's a lot of art that goes into creating ships. For beginners, you should just trust the auto best and wait to making ships until you're at the final bits of research, when all of your technology is done and you're just researching improvements into existing methods. Now we know how to handle our fleets and manage them. But how do we maintain them, and how do we enhance them? Well, one of the ways to enhance them is to upgrade them with this button, or to retrofit into a better design. Ships, as they fight in combat, will gain experience to represent the crew and the captain becoming more able to respond to space threats. So you would always like to keep your ships alive as long as possible and retrofit them instead of just disbanding them. Another way that you can increase the capability of your fleets is to assign an admiral. As you can see, we have an admiral right here. And her ability is to increase our weapons range. We have other admirals available. One who is just cheap to get and cheap to maintain. One who is a trickster, so it's easier for ships to escape and to disengage. And one who is good about maintaining ships. It's up to you to choose the right admiral for the job. And you must also consider that not every admiral is meant to lead during wartime, and not every admiral is meant to lead during peacetime. Perhaps it would be more beneficial if we hired the other admiral who would lower the upkeep and assign him until she was needed when we have a combat scenario. Admirals will also gain levels, and they will enhance their fleets as they level up, in some general ways and also in their special way, as seen here by this icon. The last thing that you can do to ships is change edicts. The edicts usually cost influence. Some of them cost energy, but as you unlock volatile motes, synthetic crystals, and gases, you will be able to use these upgrades that buff your ships in various different ways. These are temporary, as you can see. They last 12 years and they cost a certain amount of the resource, but it will give you the edge that you need in a war that you need to fight. The last way to increase the capabilities of your ships is to change policies. Now here we can see that we don't have anything besides orbital bombardment which will affect ships. But if you have the right ethics, you can unlock a war doctrine in order to get even more out of your ships, choosing things to make it fast, to make sure that they do not retreat, or to make sure that they are good at defense. And that concludes all we need to know about fleets. We learned what they are, their capacities, how to manage them, maintaining them, enhancing them, and giving you a good idea of a lot of buttons along the way. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you out there.